All right, we're rolling. Hey, another week more fun. Hey, for all you listeners out there, appreciate it. We've just got back from another week of travel, and we just wanted to kind of give a shout out to everybody. We are not growing quite as much as Roaring Kitty, but really we have been getting hundreds of thousands of listeners and viewers now over the last 2 months. So a lot of growth from the podcast. Really appreciate you all, and obviously I think that what we're doing and what we're talking about as a business and as an industry, I think it's obviously very relevant and more important than ever. And it just seems like we've been some of the people out there who are willing to invest the time and the effort and the energy to really know what's happening in the industry, and at some point take a risk and be able to just put and disseminate the information out there of everything that's happening. So for all of you listeners, subscribers, thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. Been getting a lot of positive feedback over these last few months. Definitely, like, subscribe. What is it, Mr. Ring the bell? Do all the things, to continue to promote us, out in that space. So again, finally starting to see a little bit of payoff from, all these months and months of work that we feel like is very needed in the industry. So Jeff is joining me today, back as a returning guest. Mike is sitting this one out since Jeff just was on the trip with me this last week. And so felt like he's going to be a better addition to this podcast episode, joining us all.
Yeah, great to be here.
I was going to say you're quiet, Jeff.
I know. I need to speak up a little bit more, huh?
No, it's all good. So Jeff and I just spent the last 4 days with the folks at Ambetter Health, which is part of Centene. It's the IFP or the ACA side of Centene Health. So we had a great time. Really appreciated the invite. Shout out to you all at Ambetter and Centene. I think you'd agree it was a pretty cool event, huh, Jeff?
It was an absolute awesome weekend that they put on for us.
Yeah, do you remember when I called you and I was like, hey, do you want to go to this event?
Yeah,
with
and
me?
I'm like, absolutely. Let's go.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So to kind of give you an idea, what we really did is they are one of the big NASCAR sponsors. They actually have a car.
Yeah, Zane Smith, the driver.
Yep, Zane Smith, number 71. He's their NASCAR driver. In the Sonoma Raceway is where we were. I picked up some hot swag. You get that camera angle, Matt, of my cool hat. But whenever I travel at these carrier events, I always pick up some sort of merch and go rep it. So, anyways, I picked up my swag. But it was a lot of fun, right? Yeah. Sonoma was a beautiful venue. Great weather, great events, great people. And overall, like any event, we try to tell everybody, the setting is awesome. The carriers, you always do a phenomenal job to go over the top and really make us feel special and valued as vendors and partners for you all. But we always say it on here, the best part about it were the people. And I really mean the people at Ambetter. We were with their whole entire leadership team, and also just the other business owners and distributors and agency owners. For the most part, really, really great people. I mean, there's always going to be a few bad apples or people that are challenging to interact with, but I think the lion's share of people are great, and the people are what make those events great. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I would kind of kick it off, Jeff. Give us kind of a recap of what our 3 or 4 days looks like.
Yeah. So, first flight getting delayed going into San Francisco right now. If you're flying to San Francisco, I suggest you go anywhere else in the world. Yeah. They've got one runway right now, so both ways going in and out. So started out a little rough, but
take Oakland. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But Sonoma, absolutely beautiful there. Drove in, got a nice kickoff.
Hey, let's talk about that too. So the airport, to Jeff's point, just FYI, our flight was delayed there and back both times, and then the pilot finally got on and said, oh yeah, they're doing construction down to one runway. So if you are flying into San Francisco, just, like we said, book Oakland. It's going to be there all summer, going to be a rough one. So no on-time flights to San Francisco.
Yeah, avoid it at all costs.
There you go. Keep going, Jeff.
So, yeah, we drove into Sonoma. It was about an hour and a half ride with traffic. But we got there, had a nice kickoff event, kind of a social hour with all the other Ambetter guests. And, it's always good to see other partners across the country or people, at similar levels and being able to interact with them and kind of go into deep dive conversations about where the industry is, what their pain points are, and it's kind of funny. Almost everyone's dealing with the exact same issues. It doesn't matter who you talk to or who they're associated with. Everyone's going through the exact same things right now.
Yeah, a lot of common themes, right? And so that's also what's very important for us in putting the information out there to you all, is it's not like we're alone and that we're these solo operators out there going like, oh yeah, we're the only ones having this painful experience. No, it resonates with everybody because we're all dealing with it. But yeah, we stepped right out of the car, check in. They had a check-in desk, a hospitality desk for us. We were able to pick out some new hot sunglasses,
which is a good thing because my Oakleys went missing that day.
That's true.
So shout out to Ambetter on being prepared for that. So I had a pair of sunglasses the whole weekend.
Yes, we got some sweet sunglasses, which was fun. They had that cocktail, hour hors d'oeuvres, reception, which was great. And, like when I walk into those events, there's those partners and agencies and those faces and people that I know really well. And certainly I'm always very cognizant or very conscientious to spend time with those agency owners and people where I have a great relationship. And then I'm also cognizant to just not stay in my comfort zone and only talk to those people. I always very much try to, reach across the aisle, so to speak. I always want to try to, I don't recognize that person. Let me go say hey to them, get to know them. Who are they? Who are they with? And build those kind of relationships and rapport with others. Like we always say, you're going to catch a lot more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Absolutely.
My wife taught me that, by the way.
So. Shout out to Heather.
Yeah. So we had that reception, like first off, that lasted a couple hours. It was a great event. You know what I mean? We usually stay out later than we should.
Every time we travel.
Yeah. What did we do the next morning?
Next morning, we had a breakfast, and then Kevin and Nate kind of gave like a State of the Union talk on Ambetter.
Hey, just so the IRS knows, they legitimately did it. They had a great business planning session. Absolutely. It was Kevin Coonahan, their Ambetter CEO, Nate Waters, their chief sales officer, and Carrie Klaus, I think VP of
National Sales.
Yeah. So, their whole leadership, sales leadership team was there, as well as like many others. I can't go through.
And Armando.
Yeah.
Armando as well.
Can't go through the whole list of Ambetter folks.
Many others.
But there were probably 10, 15 people in leadership at Ambetter there, right?
Yeah. No, it was really impressive having senior leadership in one location with all agency owners. Sometimes the events we go to, you get a handful of people, but it was nice having like the whole executive team there plus senior leadership in one location.
Yeah, and it was nice because again, they were very accessible to us and very open in just having a very free and open conversation about either pain points that we're having or things that we're experiencing in the industry, kind of updating us in conversations that they're having with HHS or CMS, and there was a lot of valuable information that we gleaned from that too.
Right.
So I think that was very cool. Should we talk more about the business planning session and some of the hot topics, or let's go through the calendar of events before we go back to the...
Yeah. And then let's jump back to the main event portion right there.
Yeah.
So after we had, kind of the rundown on all Ambetter stuff, we jumped on a bus with everyone else and went to our first wine vineyard.
Yep.
Which ended up being some of the best wine that we had. Was actually, my favorite was the first one we got right off the
very
bus.
first one we picked up, right?
And kind of a cool wine vineyard we went to. Had a tunnel that was a T-shaped tunnel. They dug it out in 2004. Cost do you remember the price of it?
Back then it was like $14.5 million.
Yeah,
which is like probably 30-something million now.
Yeah, just an absolute incredible thing. But it was crazy when you go in there because they were talking room temperatures and stuff. Yes, it was like perfectly in the 60s.
Yes.
Humidity level, everything just absolutely perfect back there. We learned everything about wine barrels and
more than I ever thought that I would need to know.
Yeah, like the smaller wine barrels are bigger than the big ones. Like, hey, I would never have known that. But
there's less oak and circumference to absorb the
and how many years it holds. But I will say, from learning that, from tasting them from one wine vineyard to another, and they said, hey, we age ours, an extra 18 months. I could actually taste it. So it was kind of crazy, and it was a really, really cool experience at that first wine vineyard.
Yeah, so we went from one to then we went to got back on the bus, went to the next vineyard. And that one was more scenic, I guess I would say. That's where we spread out for like lunch and like live music and just hang out, beautiful weather. on the patio outside, fountain, ponds, everything very serene, beautiful.
It's like what you see in the movies. That's the type of vineyard you went on the second one. The first one was more industrial, like this is how the wine's made. Here's the vineyard. Yes, we're on the mountainside. Second one was like a movie scenery. It was really cool.
And by the end of it, I was like, the Saturday Night Live, a little skit from John C. Reilly. It was like, sweet pear and wine.
Exactly. That was us by the end of the day.
I'm supposed to spit it out. But no way, Jose. I'm not spitting it out. It tastes like fruit. So if you've seen that on Instagram or anything, you know what I'm talking about. So anyways, it was a lot of fun. And again, it's nice because over time there's people in those groups and in those events where they're going to be pretty guarded, have their barriers up. And, day one you meet them. But by day 2, day 3, had a few interactions with them, people are going to open up a little bit more. Yeah. Just whether people are introverts or extroverts or whatever, or it's a trust level. And eventually, you get enough time to build rapport with some of those people and start having conversations. Yeah. Which was good.
Absolutely.
What after that? Then we had
so then we got to head back to the hotel, and we had another cocktail kind of social hour with some food, snacks, things. Got to interact with other partners and agency owners there for a couple hours, or take a nap. And I think a lot of people chose to take the nap there.
Yes, that's true.
And then we went to an awesome vineyard for dinner that night.
That's true.
Just absolutely incredible. It was like a 15-minute ride from our hotel. You right when you first get there, it's a vineyard kind of on the side of the hill where you overlook the whole valley.
That's right.
Just hundreds of acres of all the growth that they've got there. They've got the runway off to the side. They have the ponds. Just everything.
And then we had dinner down in the cave.
Yep, and then we proceeded after kind of social hour. You go down, like, was it 2 stories maybe, and you go into their cave tunnel. But they had kind of like almost like a Beauty and the Beast type setting of lights and everything on all the cave walls and everything. It was probably double the size of the first cave that we went into.
That's true.
Size-wise, with all the wine barrels on the side. Had an awesome steak down there, and got to have dinner with Ambetter's CEO, Kevin, sat right next door to us, and had some great conversations with him that I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit later.
We'll dive into that.
Yeah.
But the event was cool. I mean, the experience was cool. And they always go over the top and do a phenomenal job with that. And I think that, hard work pays off is what we tell people. And for those listening, they're thinking like, oh, sure, sounds like you guys just fly around and go to all these fun events. And, I'll be honest, no. I mean, even traveling to these events, it's work, it's time, it's coordination, and a lot of years building the business to kind of make it into those rooms. Yeah. So just for listeners to understand, it's not like, just last year I started getting invites. I've been in the business for 17 years, and it's not like I've been getting those invites my entire career.
Right.
You have to earn it,
Absolutely.
so to speak. So, but cool event. And then the next morning, of course, after that, we kind of went back after dinner, back to the hotel. I think we did turn in early, and then because we had the race in the morning, and then we had
so we came back, and then remember we had a couple drinks with Nate that night.
Oh, that's right.
And a couple of the other agency partners, and
that's right.
Tried to turn in a little bit earlier for that.
That's true,
because we had an early wake up call for NASCAR on Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's right. So then the next morning we did early morning to NASCAR, to Sonoma, but that was like I said, pretty awesome. Getting to get there early, get to our chalet that we had. To watch the races, and then, did a little bit of a pool, which, by the way, I won.
Yes, you did.
So
you won the big pool, too. You didn't win the first or second. You won the end of the race.
Good job, Kyle Larson. I drew his name.
Shout out Kyle Larson.
I drew his name from the hat.
Yeah.
And I was the winner on the pool.
I think my guy didn't even finish the race, I drew.
If you're listening, my last 2 trips in a row, I've won. So I'm on a heater right now.
Yeah, you are.
So that was cool. And anyways, so we did the betting pool there, and then obviously we went and got golf carted down to the pits. Mm-hmm. It was pretty cool, right, Jeff? I mean, just being in the garage, walking past pit row, and all the cars getting ready, and having the NASCAR guys talk to you about all the little ins and outs of it, the nuance and the detail. And then this year, what was different is we were actually able to go into the driver's trailer.
Yeah, which was cool.
Yeah, so we were able to go in his trailer. Talked to Zane just minutes before he's suiting up and getting ready to go in the car, and it was his birthday, and I think he placed pretty good too. What did he finish?
He was, I think, 12th.
13th.
Yeah, 13th, he was top 15. I know that.
Which in NASCAR, I mean, usually if I finish in 13th place or something, I'm pissed. But in NASCAR, that's actually pretty good.
A lot of people didn't even finish that race. We had a ton of crashes, caution flags, everything in the
chaos.
first series. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty.
We even saw Zane get bumped pretty hard, and he went off in the weeds and came right back in, right in front of our tent. It was an impressive move by him.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So it was a good race there. I think he performed pretty good overall. Anyways, and I think going ahead, it was pretty cool being in his trailer right before, having a pretty candid conversation with him, being able to go up above, talk to his the spotters and the crew and everybody. There's so much tech that goes into it that I wouldn't have known.
Absolutely.
You think it's just a driver getting in a car and talking to just a dude on the radio. It's a lot more sophisticated than that.
Even the tires, when I was looking at them, compared to, the tires we put on our cars, you're like, wow, look at these things.
We learned that a set of tires is like $10,000 and they burn through 7 or 8 per race.
Yep.
So we learned that to run tires is about $80,000 per race.
Yes.
So you can imagine this is not a sport for your average person.
No, not at all.
So anyways, super cool. Everybody was pretty happy with the event overall. That was a lot of fun. We ended up just going to dinner that night. After it was all over, went back to the hotel, went to dinner with a couple of agency friends, that we just hung out with. And then just back through lovely traffic, crawling through San Francisco and hanging out in the Delta Lounge delayed, a couple times until we were
5 a.m. wake up call for a noon takeoff.
Yeah. So that's how it goes. And sorry to my agency partners. We do a monthly agency owner call to all of our sub-agency partners. I was supposed to do it yesterday yesterday. Yeah. And because of the delay, I had to cancel that meeting. So sorry to all my sub-agency partners. I'll work on trying to find a makeup time for y'all. So anyways, let's talk about some of the meat and potatoes of the business session and the business meeting. And, and I'll have to lean on you for more of your expertise with some of these IFP, concepts and things going on right now. But a couple things that struck me is I will say that I appreciate, and we talk about it, I think on this podcast, we're always trying to be very fair and reasonable and balanced in the sense that there's always things that carriers do excellent, they do great, and there's things that they don't do great. And I give it both ways. I think that we want to acknowledge and give people credit where it's due, and also tell people where their shortcomings are. And that's just from a partnership perspective, right? Yeah. I mean, we tell carriers that all the time. Hey, when we're giving you feedback and telling you what you're not doing well, we're only telling you that because we actually care and we want to see them fixed. And we're not just trying to be critical for no good reason, right? Yeah. So I would say the couple things I would, to Ambetter's credit, I've been critical about some of their policies and processes, and we had a lot of good conversations with their leadership team about it. But a couple things that I would acknowledge is I think that they are listening. I think that they are finally really starting to take things very serious and take that feedback and starting to implement policies and measures that I think are going to significantly change things.
Yes.
I would say. So props to them for listening to feedback and doing something with it. So first things that struck out to me, let's go through the business session. They are adding a mobile app for all their members.
Which I'm very excited for.
Right.
I mean, they didn't give us all the details on it. They're going to roll it out kind of slow, but it should be ready to go by open enrollment. But I think it's going to be a game changer for client retention. It's something that's really missing on the IFP side of things. And, them wanting to be one of the catalysts of, hey, we're going to put this out there. I think it's going to be a great thing, and it should get, younger people are on these plans, and being able to access your care and stuff through a mobile app, I think it's going to be great. A couple regional carriers we have here locally have one, and it's been ultra successful for them.
Yeah, and Canada, we sit on the Medicare side, right, all the apps, but we haven't seen it as much in the individual marketplace. Yep. So they're going to be launching their mobile app. Like Jeff alluded to, it's not going to be a snap of a finger, all markets immediately. They're starting to roll that out. I believe that we're okay sharing this information. If I'm not, I'm sure I'm going to hear from Ambetter, and you'll have some edits to our podcast. But anyway, so that was the first thing that I thought that's great news. And my conversation into their leadership is saying, hey, we just so we want to do a podcast, and I think we want to disseminate this information to you all because it's needed. There's information and things that carriers are working on that a lot of times the broker just is like, oh man, why in the heck don't they do this? And the broker's just sitting back there they don't have the communication from the carrier, and they don't know what they're working on. And so there's a perception and maybe a notion from the brokers that is incorrect, that things are not being worked on than they are. So I think we wanted to kind of get some of these updates out to everybody. The other thing that we want to talk about is there's a big crackdown on fraud. So they definitely, as we keep talking about the ACA and the marketplace, is that it's real. Like, we have been banging the drum for months now, and for years I've been a person that's been a really loud voice in all of this, and talking to all the carriers and anybody who will listen about the amount of fraud and excessive fraud that we've experienced, and how it's been detrimental to us financially and to agents that are selling, and ultimately how it harms consumers, right? Because it's not some harmless crime where there's no victim. There's really people getting screwed.
People are going through cancer treatments and they're being moved off their plan. They go in, for some chemo, and they get told, hey, your insurance changed. Were you aware of that? It doesn't actually cover this. You've got to go to a different hospital network for this. And, it really is affecting people's lives with things that are going on. There's many, many different cases.
And tax ramifications too.
Yeah, tax issues as
people
well.
Are being put on, you qualify for all these subs. No, they don't. And then they get an increased tax bill that they're not planning on. I mean, they
didn't even know they had health insurance,
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on. So the carriers all know it. And I think the overwhelming tone about the fraud is it's finally hitting and dropping. And I think Ambetter talked about some steps that they're going to be taking, actionable things in the future to, prevent some of this in the future and kind of curb things. And so I very much appreciate it, just from the same thing. It's prevented a lot of the good organizations and the good actors out there from being able to actually scale and grow. And so what's been happening is you have a lot of these bad actors taking up a lot of the market share. Yeah. And I think the more and more that carriers remove them, it allows more space for the good partners to continue to grow and support and help agents and agencies, and ultimately serve that consumer and that beneficiary. So I think that'll be great.
100%. And I think if you're a bad actor out there right now and you're listening to this, I would stop immediately, because they're going to crack down hard.
And not only that, and we are doing a spotlight obviously on Ambetter, and their senior leadership team has committed to coming onto the podcast and being a guest, which will be very coming soon, just so everybody knows. We'll have somebody from their senior team on the podcast. But even Aetna today, put out some notice to GAs and to partners, some advanced notice, which I think I'm okay to share. There's going to be communications out to the marketplace that, and they just kind of gave us the sneak preview that they're also announcing like a zero tolerance policy, a very hard line. There is a zero tolerance policy about any of these behaviors, and if there's circumstances or complaints that arise and there's not proper documentation provided, it's going to be a no-nonsense, and they're going to be terminating people as well. Yeah. So, I mean, this is not just one carrier. I think we're starting to see some consistency across the board from the carriers. And, we obviously had conversations with people there about, the fear is, of course, that, look, either they start taking these very proactive steps to fix it, or you got daddy government, that's going to come in, and CMS and HHS is going to come in and, fix it. And again, I've never seen so much turmoil in the industry right now in the Medicare side of things. And a lot of this is, very aggressive, sweeping changes on the Medicare side. And I think that all the carriers realize that collectively, if they don't do their part to rein it in, that they're going to get, government solutions to the problem. Yeah. So I think that's, one of the things that they would rather try to prevent. And I think candidly, though, I will say this, I'm not trying to dog on HHS or CMS. I think that typically when they're making policies, they're trying to solve problems, but they don't have all the tools that they need in their tool belt, right? They're doing it with a limited scope of tools, and there's a lot more at play that they don't have the ability to. So just, if you're listening, understand that. And again, I think that right now it's a moment in time in which Health and Human Service, I think they want the carriers to try to solve it. I think they're giving them the space and the time appropriate and necessary that they need to see if they can fix it first. And I don't think that they want to come in and intervene and come up with a solution unless they ultimately absolutely have to. Right. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think they're like, hey, you're on the front lines. Let's see what you can do about it. If it doesn't get solved, then obviously we're going to have to step in and do something about it.
Yeah. So definitely I would say that. one other really cool thing, and I'll tell you, this is one of the biggest takeaways that I really loved. So shout out to Val, is that their retention program. So just so you know, over these past months, Ambetter has implemented a retention program where when members are calling in to cancel their policies, they're doing a much better job of, asking find out questions to say, fantastic, what's going on? And before they just kick them to the marketplace and say, okay, here's your cancellation, good luck. Just asking questions. And, resoundingly, they just found that most people calling in didn't understand their plan and their coverages, how to utilize it, how to access care. And it was more just an education piece that person needed. And so they implemented this retention program, and they have been retaining 20% or more sometimes of those people calling in to cancel their plans.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing is that when they retain that member, the original agent of record retains it.
Yep.
So
that was our first question we had for him afterwards.
Exactly.
Yep.
Just so you all know, the very first time I'm hearing things like this, that's immediately, okay, so if you're hiring in staff and spending all this money to retain the policies, who remains agent of record? And they're like, you guys, the agent. They've been very broker and agent friendly. So just so you all know listening, again, kudos. I think that's great that they are spending money on your behalf to try to help retain those members, increase your LTVs, and provide a better experience for your member, and you're still the agent of record.
Yeah.
I think that was like my biggest, all right, good job. That's very well done. So I think that's important for brokers to understand that, and much needed, much needed. I think we can also talk about, I think they're going to have one state expansion. I can't really reveal where, but they are, and they didn't actually even reveal to me either. But I've been around in the business long enough, I can connect the dots.
Yeah.
So just so everybody knows, they don't come out and tell us where they're going to yet. You have window shopping that happens closer. But, if you're involved in healthcare and the industry in general, then there's other pieces of the equation that you can just connect and see and understand, like where the strategy is. So they will have one new state. And I think they're going to further expand some counties in their current footprints of states.
Yeah, that was one of the main things that we took away from it, is some of their states where they have really good product right now, where they might not be in all the counties. They're looking at adding a bunch of new counties around there where they've got good hospital networks. So I'm looking at some good things for 2025 with Ambetter.
Yeah, so there will be some opportunity there for sure. And like anything, that's good for the consumer because there's going to be more choices and more offerings for those people in those expanded areas.
Yeah.
So, and then the last thing that was big, and I'll have you talk about it more, was ICHRA.
Yeah.
Right. So you run with that, Jeff, because that's more your...
So, I think we're going to probably even do a separate podcast just on ICHRA alone, but it's kind of the new hot thing that people are doing. What essentially it is your employer is going to give you a tax-free reimbursement for you to go get an individual plan if you want.
Yeah, what does ICHRA stand for again?
I actually wrote it down. I keep even forgetting it stands for Individual Coverage Health Reimbursement Arrangement.
Yep.
So I always know
it's
it as
a mouthful.
ICHRA, but
we just call it ICHRA, but I was like, oh yeah, what does it exactly stand for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it bottom line from what it is, they're making things more accessible for you to get onto health insurance plans. Employer plans are going up. They're saying probably next year about 6.5%. So it's a lot more affordable for you to be on an individual marketplace plan. So it's kind of they're looking at some new policies to allow people to get more affordable health insurance. And I think the carriers are really starting to invest into it and make things more accessible. And it looks like Ambetter's really trying to do some good things with it. So I'm excited to see what comes from it.
Yeah, and just so you know, too, they did spend some time talking about marketing collateral and pieces that they're going to have available in their toolkit so that you all as brokers who are selling it can, obviously take that collateral, use it in your marketing activities and do it in a very good and compliant way and help you generate business. So there are those
And they
pieces.
were going to offer some trainings too.
Yes.
From what I took from it. And I was like, I think that's one area for agents who write ACA that we don't have enough of is training. Obviously, we offer a ton of trainings here at Agent Boost, but getting them from the carriers, I think it's great that Ambetter's trying to, do so many of them internally.
Yeah, and just so you know, again, if you're listening, I got to shoot my shot every once in a while and ask for the business. So, that's one of the, to Jeff's point, we're always training. So if you're listening, you're like, oh, like what is ICHRA and how do I do it and how do I sell it and how do I leverage it? These are all the things that we're training our agents with all the time. And to Jeff's point, we're going to have ICHRA trainings to educate you more on it. How do you actually use this? Why, who, when, where, what, why, how, right? So that you understand its place in the marketplace, because it's not right for everybody, but understanding where and how is important. So if you're somebody who's not aligned with Ambetter, you want a contract, hit us up. I'll probably make sure that we put our contracting link on the episode, so you can just click it. And if you want an Ambetter contract, we can help you out with that.
Yeah.
But then, and they're going to be expanding it into, I think, 5 more states. So again, I can't really, they didn't actually share all the states with us either. They just mentioned that they're going to have opportunities. So I think there's going to be more footprint to have those ICHRA products. Yeah. But the one theme that I would tell you is that I think overwhelmingly, the thought is that, if you're working for an employer, you're just fixed on whatever that benefit structure and company is, depending on where you're at. And I think ICHRA is more designed for people around the 20, 30, 40, 50 employees is this kind of the sweet spot.
If you're on the smaller side of it, yeah.
Yeah, because what happens is those smaller groups typically don't have the funds to really provide these extremely robust employer benefits. They're very expensive for the employer. And the ultimate end result is that the employee doesn't always have phenomenal coverage. It's different when you're working for a company with thousands of employees.
Yeah.
And so I think the thought is that it's beneficial for everybody to provide, the employer the ability to get them onto the marketplace, to save that cost, that employee can actually get better benefits and coverage. And then, of course, the marketplace is continuing to grow those enrollment numbers. Right?
Yeah. And I think one nice part about that, too, is, your company offers one company that you can go through.
Correct.
You might need healthcare in certain areas where they don't have it. That's where ICHRA is kind of coming in where, this is giving you an option to go get healthcare in other areas. And ultimately, I think that's what the government wants to even see.
And access to networks, right?
Yeah.
Because as we know, it's like, look, let's say you reside somewhere and your employer-sponsored plan has a limited network or only tied to one hospital or health system. And if you can then go onto the marketplace and then at least choose how you're going to access your health care, I think that's what they're trying to push.
Yeah.
Right. And then talk to maybe a little bit, because, we had a conversation before on how ICHRA is just slightly, it's different than like the family glitch.
Right.
And I didn't prep you for this, Jeff. Yeah. Can you talk about family glitch
without? Yeah. So family glitch is essentially what it is.
And it's new, right?
Yeah. It started in 2023, I believe. Yep. End of 2023. I think the new numbers are 9.5%. So if your cost on your group health plan is more than 9.5%, your family
of your pay, right?
Of your family can go out onto the marketplace and get on a plan. What that is doing is just because some of these plans on those smaller group plans, it's ending up being close to 20% of their paycheck in a lot of the cases. It's looking at
it's almost like people are working just to have health insurance, right?
Yeah, and that's what we really want to avoid, because it's like, oh wow, if I wasn't employed, I could have better health insurance if I wasn't. So, and we want everyone employed in the U.S. It's a government-run program there. Right. We want people employed and people have access to the right type of insurance without breaking the bank. So, and people need to take more advantage of that. That is one area that not a lot of people did, and they weren't getting onto plans. And I really think if people learned a little bit more about it, you just looking at your group policies, if you're someone out there who has a lot of group policies and you analyze it and you're looking at some of those families with 4 or 5 members on it, they're on a little bit lower of the income side of it, you're going to see a lot of them that qualify for it.
Yeah, and even for those, so if you're a broker that hasn't been doing ACA, it may seem overwhelming, but I still think that ACA is still less complex and easier to do than Medicare. In my opinion.
Night and day, it's easier.
But all the terminology and everything, it seems overwhelming. But I don't think it's hard. I mean, we train and teach up people to how to sell and understand it very compliantly in a pretty quick manner and get them up to speed. And then also agents who have been selling it for a while, you need to stay up on it, because like Medicare and every other industry, ICHRA and the family glitch and all these, if you're just putting your head down in a marketplace and selling like one particular carrier and you're not staying up with everything happening in 1 to 2 years, it's completely different. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that we observe is people, we're all just like creatures of habit, right? And you get very comfortable with what you're doing over and over and over. And if you settle in like that and stay basically complacent for 12 months, the industry is passing you by.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're not reading, when even the carriers are sending you those newsletters, updates and different stuff about product, you're going to fall behind really quick. I'm constantly having to even read up on it, and I'm learning new things daily. Percentages change yearly, stuff on it. You really need to pay attention to what's going on with it, especially in the ACA area.
Yeah. So if you're one of those kind of, I would say, legacy agents who's been doing this for a while, just make sure you're staying up on all of these changes with the private especially if you're selling in these private exchanges, because they're very different.
We could talk about private exchanges for a very long time, but yes, especially if you're in a private exchange.
Yeah. And then if you're selling in a couple FFM states, and then you're like, hey, I got a client or a customer that moved here and it's a private exchange, whole different animal.
Yep.
But I will tell you, I think we're one of those organizations out there that we do business in all of them, in all the FFM states, as well as every single private exchange.
Yep.
Pretty much. We sold in Alaska, maybe not Alaska.
I actually looked at the numbers today. We sold 5 plans recently in Alaska.
Okay. Well,
we actually sold the plan in every state except for North Dakota so far this year.
Huh.
So if you're an agent out there in North Dakota, I have a sweatshirt for you if you contract and sell a plan there. So it means we sold in all 50. We're contract, everything's ready to go, just no plans sold so far this year.
And it is a lot of red tape. Sometimes to get set up in these private exchanges and do all the certifications that go along with it. And then candidly, you're using different like quoting and enrollment platforms, not just Health Sherpa or something else. So I think that there's a whole lot more to do it, but we can facilitate pretty much anywhere there.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got all the good contracts, everything that you need, all the regional ones that are big players, we're lined up with them, so we can really give you good service for what you need and teach. I think one of the big parts about it too, depending on which state you're looking at, really knowing the product and network is completely different from state to state. So just because you're selling FFM, it's different every single state that you go into. You really need to know what you're doing if you're selling in multiple states.
Yeah, and it is. It seems complicated out there, and it is, but it's a lot easier if you're engaged as a broker and you're partnered with somebody who's engaged. It makes it a whole lot easier. And I will say, I guess probably the last part of the episode that I want to talk about is, just so that everybody kind of has a clear understanding as well, is we spent a fair amount of time talking to Kevin and Nate and everybody in leadership about, behind the scenes, my policies and PMPs, policies and procedures and things. And, because like every organization, there's always room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're crushing it or not. Like Ambetter grew significantly. I can't remember, like 40% growth or something.
They're over 4 million members now. Yeah, the next closest group, I think, is at 2.1 members.
Right.
And which is just, it's crazy how much they grew this last year.
Yeah, they have more heads than anybody else, in the country. Huge growth.
By almost double.
Yeah. So that's one conversation is you can't just be complacent with your growth as is. Happy to talk about like things on our radar that we had discussions about where, of course, more from our interactions with them is on agent, like, blackout periods and, what's reasonable, not reasonable, release processes, what that should look like, transferings of books of business, and what's reasonable or not reasonable. Because what always seems to happen in the industry is there almost seems to be outliers. You almost call it like Tukey outliers, like Medicare. But you have these outliers, these carriers that have these very extreme policies on one end or another of the spectrum. Some that are way too loose, others that are way too stringent, and then you have the carriers that kind of are meeting in the middle with what's considered all very and almost becomes like the industry standard, right? And so it's more conversations about all these different processes and policies and how do they do things versus how do other carriers do things.
Right.
And those are one of the things that I would tell you, we have value because we have exposure to a lot of different carriers and we can give them ideas and say, hey, here's a policy that you guys do very well on.
Right.
Here's another one that we really don't like the way that you do this. And let me give you an example and let me tell you the why. And here's why it's harmful to the consumer, or here's why it's harmful for the broker and it's not friendly. And they're very intelligent people with extremely high acumen. And once they understand the problem and the how and the why, then they're very prompt to want to implement new policies that are going to be more effective.
Yeah, and you know what the crazy part was? How open they were to it. They're like, you know what? We realize that, and we're going to actually do something about it. Usually sometimes when you talk to executives, CEOs like that, they're like, yeah, but it's what's working for us. Ambetter really was receptive to it, going, yeah, it's something we're working on. And one thing that they did is they moved where if you want to move hierarchy changes, it was supposed to be cut off in June. They moved it to August because they saw there was too big of a movement. One big group, that's out there right now that needs to move a lot of contracts. They see that people couldn't get it done during that time.
Exactly.
And I appreciate that they're willing to do those type of things on the fly. Anyways, that's the policy, and they're open to changing a lot of things that they might not be doing the best at, but there's a lot of things that they are the best at in the industry. But I think they really want to be, they want to have everything the right way.
Yeah. So to me, it seems like they took the feedback. I think they're doing it, and I think they'll still continue to make policies that are great, and I think you're going to see, in general, one of the biggest things that we all agreed upon, and we bring a different perspective coming from Medicare and having done it for many years and then starting to do the ACA, is we've seen all the years and the sophistication of the Medicare industry and line of business, from distributors and commissions and payee levels and payee types and agent models and compliance and regs and filing to marketing. So everything's been so different on Medicare, and it's matured. And so it's become this matured market and line of business for the last 2 decades. And now it just seems like ACA, we all agreed that it's kind of going through and evolving through that same maturity.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I am telling everybody is that it might have taken 2 decades for Medicare to mature to get to where it is now. It's not going to take 2 decades for ACA to do that. It's,
no, not at all.
How it's going to mature and kind of feel and seem very similar and kind of meet in the middle is probably going to take 2-3 years. Yeah. And that's maybe even.
We've seen more movement with it in the last 6 months than we did for 5 years.
Yes, exactly.
It's been crazy.
Yeah, and a lot of that is just the fuel of the growth of the marketplace and just the number of enrollments and everything else behind it. And then, of course, where there's also money, there's also all the bad actors follow and all the fraud, right? So anyway, so I think that that's why we've seen such a significant, it really is a line of business that, even back 3, 5, 7 years ago, as business owners, it was like, I don't know, that it's very unstable, and you have all these, co-ops that are failing, and you have these carriers not paying commissions, and it's all a disaster. But there really has been it's really leveled off to feel like a very sustainable line of business. And so I think that's also why you're seeing so much attention and interest and growth in the ACA space. So plan on more, and plan on it maturing to the level that Medicare is in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I think that's spot on.
And the last thing is just know that we're always trying to position ourselves candidly with carriers and with we feel that we're valuable. And the place that we serve in the marketplace is that for our agents and our brokers and our agencies out there, we're always out there advocating on their behalf, right? And at the same time, we're going to the carrier partners to say, hey, we're feet on the street. Like, we have some real world experience with the policies and the things that you're implementing, and we can give you feedback on what's working and what's not working.
Right.
So just understand that's part of our critical role that we're playing in the industry and how, we help drive things forward. Yeah. So anything else you feel like we got to add, Jeff, before we, sign, seal, and deliver this baby? I
think the biggest thing is great job by Ambetter. We appreciate our partnership with you guys. We love your executive leadership teams. Overall, as a whole organization, we're really happy to be partnered with you guys, and thank you for the great weekend. And we're excited to roll out more stuff coming to 2025, because I think Ambetter is going to have a massive year next year. And if you're not contracted right now, like Dan said earlier, reach out to us, because I think there's a lot of placement for you to grow your business.
Yeah. All right. Well said. Well, appreciate you all. We'll be catching you, I'm sure, again next week for another. We got a couple hot episodes coming up, so I think you're all going to be very excited. So